Hi guys, my name is Piotr. I'm CTO of Divante, a business software house. And what I'm gonna tell you about today is our open source project called Vue Storefront. It's Vue.js, mobile first, but online second, e-commerce storefront that can be integrated with virtually any e-commerce CMS, but we are focused on Magento 2 right now. And I'm gonna tell you about progressive web apps, but very general things. Then we will go deeper into architecture and technology stuff behind this project, and in the end I will invite you to become contributors because it's MIT-based open source project, and it will happen only with your help. So let's start with some business motivations behind this project. Basically, as you probably all are aware of, e-commerce right now isn't so mobile friendly. I don't mean that it doesn't support like responsive web design, because of course it is, but generally the user experience on mobile is mobile web is worse than in native applications. The web apps are quite slow, doesn't support poor internet connections, doesn't work offline, and also a lot of problems with scalability, with legacy technologies are there. So we decided to do something with that, having also fun in the process. So basically, when you take a look at the future of e-commerce in general, it's all in mobile. Like mobile is growing like a hell. But when you compare the distribution of mobile users between native apps and mobile web is like 3 times more popular than the corresponding native apps. Of course, why is that? Because of the distribution model. Mobile web it simply works, can be shared, can be linked, doesn't require all this app store installation stuff, so it's extremely easy to distribute. But what is funny, or maybe not so funny, comparing the user experience mobile web to mobile apps, mobile web still suffers a lot. Like the users spend much less time on mobile web comparing to the native apps, comparing the same services. The native apps are still more engaging. User put them on the home screens and so on. So progressive web apps are about stepping over this gap, like between a mobile web and native apps. It's to provide the native application user experience to the mobile web, to allow you to install the applications on your home screen, to use some features like service workers in offline synchronization, push notifications, to create very fast working interfaces. Here's some example app. It is a web application, but works and looks totally like native app. All the technologies are there. So we have these design techniques like purple SSR, design patterns. I will tell you something more on that later on. We have all the technology stack like frameworks, React, Vue.js, many others. We have all the toolings, Webpack, Lighthouse from Google, and so on. So basically, we have all the stuff here to do something interesting, and we decide to start our project with basically 3 particular goals. First, we wanted to build e-commerce storefront which works 100% offline. So you don't have to have internet connection to browse the product, to even make orders. You can do virtually anything without internet connection. Of course, orders are then synchronized when you are online. You get a new version of products and stock information when you're offline and so on, but the basic functionalities will be working without internet connection. Doing so, we also create something that is very well scalable. So basically, you don't have to worry about the server downtimes. The traffic peaks are no longer a problem because the application is totally distributed along the user devices. Also, we try to build something that is blazingly fast, like response times in milliseconds, not seconds, like browsing products and other actions. And also, What is very important here, the project from the beginning was intended to be open source because of two major reasons. The first is that the scope of the project is really broad, like creating the fully functional e-commerce is like crazy task. It's a task for years, but we would like to build it in a few months. And also the second was to share the knowledge, share the insights, get the best things from you guys, from other developers, to build something that will be really usable. Not our, like, we don't have a monopoly for the best ideas. So this is the second reason here. We created 3 projects on GitHub: Vue Storefront API, Mage to NoSQL, and I will tell you something more on each of the projects on the next slides. So we started with the design process. We have product designer on board. Karol is our product designer, and he shared some thoughts about the process here. The link is not so well visible, but I can send you some more information when you just grab your email then. The design process was challenging because designing the mobile app is challenging itself, but it wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was to think of how the app should work while you're offline. So how the payment process, for example, should work, like when you don't have internet connection, don't have access to PayPal or any other service. How stock information should be presented to the user where we are not sure about the stocks because they are not synchronized. How the promo rules should work, because this is something that is really like dynamic and calculated for each particular shopping cart and so on. So we designed the project mockups using Figma.com. It's a very cool tool. I'm not sure if you know it, but it's really well designed for collaboration. We have a quite remote team, so it was very useful for us. And what we also did here was that we started the design speaking with developers, how we should divide the views to particular components to be reusable, to be scalable, to design all the animations and all the experience with mobile-first approach. So we started with mobile version. All the wireframes and graphics are also on MIT license. So if you are not using the whole project, you can still get some ideas from our mockups, something like that. It's on GitHub. The architecture, we divided the application into 3 layers and wanted to build something that is based on microservices. So it's more like the diagram on the left side with services than this monolithic approach. And it works like we have the Vue Storefront application, which is Vue.js progressive web app, which is installed in your Android, in the future iPhone phone, or desktop. And basically, it's self-sufficient. I mean, it synchronizes all the data into IndexedDB local store. All the products, maybe not all the products, I will tell you something more on that later, but the products you need on your mobile device. It has all the shopping carts, orders, and everything needed to work in your local storage. Then it uses service workers to synchronize this data with the backend. The backend is the second layer. It's Node.js and Elastic application. We have something like headless here, but it's not typical headless. I mean that in typical headless, you have a direct connection between your front end to like Magento API or something like that. We have the middleware here. So the Vue Storefront API and Elastic Data Store is the source of truth. So we synchronize using the third layer, which is the Mage to NoSQL tool, all the data from Magento, like products, attributes, categories, stocks, and everything to Elastic, and then serve the data via REST JSON API from Vue Storefront API to the storefront, and cache everything on service workers. The backend works on, as I said, on Node.js and Express framework. It uses worker pools, so we can do the synchronization in queues, using queues and server clusters, so it's quite fast. Yeah. The framework. Usually when the backend guys start doing something with frontend, they treat the frontend works like doing another HTML template, like with no respect. I also started with backend, but we treated the frontend really seriously. So we created a set of Vue.js components that can be inherited and modified within your teams. So you can create dedicated teams and get the basic features of our core components and add some look and feel, add some new functionalities there without modifying the core, which is pretty crucial for us because we plan to develop this heavily, so release updates and so on. So you have to be you have to you have to have chance to update the core. We are using a lot of Webpack. We are using Webpack for most of the backend tasks. As Andrew said, we try to do a lot of things on the server side. So we are doing server-side rendering, for example. We are doing pre-caching. We are doing bubble transpiling and other kind of stuff using Webpack. Also code splitting for better performance. So it's also fun. And few concepts that powers the progressive web apps. First of all, I'm not sure if you are familiar with Lighthouse. It's a very cool tool from Google. Here you have a screen, modified screen from Lighthouse, showing you the performance of the app. It's a tool for profiling the JS, profiling the speed of the websites. It shows you, like on user device, when the application is loaded, when it's first meaningful paint, where it's visually ready, or when it's ready for interaction. And progressive web apps are like 60% are about optimizing the time for the first interaction, optimizing the speed. So to do so, we are using Purple and server-side rendering principles. The Purple is abbreviation from push, render, precache, and lazy load. For push, you can use many different things here, like starting from HTTP to pushing all the resources to the browser between user asks for them. But also you can, for example, push some Vuex data stores, all the state required by your JavaScript before users explicitly ask for it, so you don't have to do all these AJAX requests and optimize the round trips. Also, the second part, the rendering, we are using Vue SSR as server-side rendering, and it means like we generate all the HTML required for a particular URL server-side. It's good because of two reasons. First, of course, SEO. You have quite well indexable HTMLs, even using Vue.js and all this JavaScript stack. And then you have also the loading speed is much faster because you don't have huge load on your browser and user CPU. We are using precache, using SW precache library from Google. It is for generating boilerplate service workers that can preload resources, fonts, JavaScript, static files, basically any data before user requests it. And for lazy load, we started experimenting with lazy load using Webpack code splitting, but it's to be implemented, to be honest. The next core technology here is service worker. Service worker is basically, it's quite of generalization, but it's JavaScript that can be run by your website in the background, even if the website isn't opened. So you can process push notifications using service workers. You can create something like HTTP proxy for all the requests your application is performing, so you can operate on a request and response objects and cache using app cache or anything like IndexedDB. We are using, for example, IndexedDB for some kinds of cache here, but you can cache the responses to maintain the offline state of your app. So if the users don't have access to internet, still the service worker can serve all the JSON, static files, and everything needed to for application to run. So it's pretty cool. Here's some example of our service worker. We use SW Toolbox from Google to basic operations, and then we have written a lot of code like for synchronizing the orders. So we are storing orders in IndexedDB, and when user is online, we are queuing them and sending back to Vue storefront API using some service worker tasks here. Okay. Here's the backend architecture. As I said, it's headless, but slightly different way, like having own data store, so can work in total separation from your e-commerce CMS. Right now it's Magento, but can be virtually any, like Pimcore and other. So we have this Mage to NoSQL data pump. It's funny name, data pump, but it's well describing how it works. Like the tool is getting all the data via Magento 2 API with some extensions and pull it to the Elastic. It works in worker pools, so can be run in parallel on many servers at once. It can synchronize only the changed records. We are using updated data field to check the changes right now. Later on, probably we should check some hashes or something like that. And it also can work with webhooks. So you can, via REST API, inform the Mage to NoSQL which records are changed. Okay. Here's some code sample from Vue storefront API responsible for sending out the order back to Magento. We are using guest cards method. Right now it only works for guest cards. We are not using user accounts, but in future, why not? Right now it's quite simplified to show the idea. Maybe we will use some GraphQL. The cool proof of concept from Andrew and Eugene were published on Twitter some time ago. It is really nice. Right now we are using plain REST API. Microservices. Not all of the data can be synchronized asynchronously. For example, the mentioned before promo rules. If you have something in card and in Magento you have all these, promo rules, like you get discount when you have this and that in your card. It's very hard to synchronize this logic because it's the fastest and easiest way to desynchronize everything. So in this case, we assume that the promo rules work only when you are offline, and it works like we do some proxy on the Vue storefront API. So we have method like calculate the card value or something like that. It's not implemented yet, but it should be the proxy to ask in the real time and synchronously the backend platform like Magento to do the logic. The same with the stocks, because synchronizing stocks is very risky when you have huge database of products. It's very time consuming, and also it's very easy to be desynchronized. About the technology stack, everything is based here on JS. We used to be PHP developers before in the previous life, but we just were thinking like, if we start with this new project and we don't have legacy technology limitations, why not to learn something new and have fun So we decided to go with Vue.js. Many people will ask, why not React? I'm not sure why. Like, we were considering React, of course, but we decided for Vue.js because it's very easy to learn, and it has better usability for developers than React from our perspective, especially for e-commerce, because it allows you to create all these templates, which is quite similar to the way the teams were created before. So we just were thinking like, okay, on GitHub it has almost the same number of stars like React. It's growing faster than React, and developers in e-commerce really like it, so why not? And I think it's a good idea because all the projects I heard of like the PWA Studio, the project from Hatimeria and others based on React, and our not. So you have choice. We don't want to compete with anybody. It makes no sense. We are using Babel to have the ECMAScript goodies here. We are using, of course, Webpack. Elasticsearch as data store. We were considering MongoDB, but finally we decided to go with Elastic to simplify the tech stack because it's e-commerce, so you have to have some kind of full text search. MongoDB is not so good for that, so Elastic is much better. And also have all this data store based on JSON is really cool. Then we have Node.js for the backend, for developer servers as well. Express as a backend framework. And we are using also local forage. It's a library for establishing the abstraction between local storage, IndexedDB, WebSQL, because it's any of these technologies aren't, of course, local storages, but the IndexedDB and WebSQL are not so widely supported by browsers, and the local forage is abstraction here. I have very interesting discussion with developer relationship manager from Google, and she tried to convince me that you should go only with vanilla JavaScript, no frameworks, no abstraction layers. It's not good, but we decided to value more like the accessibility and availability than standards. Okay, so I will skip this one. What I want to do here, and the main goal was to invite you to become the contributors of the project. We have documentation. It's going on, so it's not covering all the project right now, but it's still still under work. We have issues there. We have easy first picks. So you can choose and pick some of them. It's very good for newcomers to learn Vue.js or anything like that. We have first contributors here. The guys from Snowdog are contributing actively from Macopedia also. So you can check out some pull requests on GitHub, how it works, and just have fun with us because it's really a lot of fun. Here are some animations from the demo we are creating. We need like 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to finish the demo store. It's working right now, but it's not optimized, and we would like to show you something like more finished, more polished. But it's working right now. So if you are interested, or maybe some of your friends are interested in contributing to this project, just let us know. Just drop me your email here, and that's all. Thank you. Maybe some questions. Okay, if not, oh, okay. Have I heard about Magento Progressive Web App Studio, right? That was the question? Yeah, I was on presentation of Andrew today, and he described it really well. Very good presentation, Andrew. Yeah, it's very interesting. We don't try to compete with this project, but what we try to do is to start earlier, like in next 1 to 3 months have something that is working. It's based on totally different, maybe not totally different, but kind of different technologies. So you will have a choice as a developer. And that's all. The PWA is really cool stuff. I think it's really well designed. It's a really good one. It will be.